So you're
Okay,
ready.
Ken, thank you. Well, I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome all of those that are present and joining us via Zoom tonight. With the weather forecast, we weren't sure about that. So we went ahead and decided to go to Zoom rather than have it in person, a mixed in person. And then not long after that, or the next morning, the church closed. So this evening, so it's we would have been here anyway. First, I'd like to recognize any visitors that are with us tonight. Of course, Jason is with us. He'll be giving us the program. Any other visitors? You'll unmute any visitors can unmute it for a moment and give us your name and call sign.
Tim Clapper, K3XI.
All right, Tim.
Yeah.
Glad to have you join us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. And
you're from the Winchester area?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on here to listen to Jason.
Okay, great. Made a special trip to hear Jason.
I made a special trip for you, old boy.
Yeah, good. Any other visitors? Go ahead and unmute and give us your name and call.
Hi, I'm Tom Hall at AI4TH, and I've been to a couple of your meetings and took your amateur extra class, so I'm not entirely a new person.
Okay, Tom, glad to have you back in with us tonight. Anyone else?
KN4BA.
Michael?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. And how'd you find us, Michael?
Well, I'm in Richmond area, and I'm also a new candidate. I put in for a membership, so I assume that will be voted on today. So I figured I should be here.
Okay, great. We'll get to that shortly. Normally I do introductions. We go around the room with introductions, but it's a little bit clumsy with the doing it on Zoom. What you might do is you'll see your name up there. You right click on that and you can rename and you can add your call sign to it. So we can see who you are and see your sign behind that. And we'll let that be our role for our roll call for the purposes of this evening. So for the users that have received our newsletter would have seen the minutes of the past meeting. I want to check, are there any corrections to the minutes of our past meeting? Not hearing any. Do I have a motion to approve? You can unmute, somebody can unmute and approve or raise a hand.
W4PKR.
W4BRU seconds.
Anybody to second? Just raise your hand.
W4BRU.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved as written. So we'd like to move on to the treasurer's report. Ken will give us an update.
Okay. We started the month with a balance of $17,504.48. Took in quite a bit of dues, $1,562. We had donations of $61. And then we had to buy a few things. We had to buy the product, it's called Ninja Forms for the website at $1 under 200, so $199. Needed some paper, $46. We had PayPal fee is $48.66 and another one at $13.86. And then we paid the Sterling Forest or Sterling Park Amateur Radio Club, which on the Virginia QSO, $65 for the plaque that we pay for, that they hand out during the QSO. So those were all the expenses, which was $372.52, bringing us to $18,754.96. So not too bad. Okay. And I've got 3 new members. Harper Trow who does not have a license. And we have Michael Miller, extra. And we have Russell Martin, who's an extra. So can I get a vote? Well, somebody to say that we want to add these people as new members? Motion,
I move we add 3 new members.
okay.
And for WLC,
All in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Super.
aye.
You are all
Aye.
3 members. Congratulations. And that is
Welcome.
Okay, Ken, thank you for the report. Is there anything else you have to add tonight?
If you can give me just a second, I'll pull it up and I'll tell you. We've had a tremendous response on people paying their dues. And at this point, 71% of the people have already paid their dues. And we have the rest of this month and February, all of February. So at this point, we have 46 people who are members who have not yet paid their dues. So we're doing super great, much better than we ever have in the past.
Great, great news. Thank you, Ken.
Okay.
Next, I'd like to move to an update on the school. Anything new to report with the status of the classes coming up, beginning, I think, this spring? And also, you might mention, Bruce, a little bit about the mentoring corps or the Elmer Corps. I don't know if that name has been defined yet, but you might speak to that for Bruce.
Okay, we open registration on the 14th, which I think is next Tuesday. People can register at that point. If you look on the latest newsletter, it has a reproduction of the classes and seminars that we're going to teach. It's on the website, but you can see it also in the newsletter. So we're ready for that. And so we're see how we do. Usually the spring is bigger than the fall. And as to the Elmer Corps, we haven't really gotten that well organized yet. We kind of want to get into that. The one thing I did was go out to the people who recently got their licenses, tech licenses, and got 2 or 3 who came back to me and said they had some things they wanted to do in terms of mentoring. But other than that, haven't heard much back from them. So if they need something, they're not responding. But we'll get into it in more intensity once the tech classes crank up. And that's all I've got, unless somebody's got questions.
Any questions for Bruce? Thank you for the update, Bruce. And the next item on my agenda is the status of the D-Star repeater. I think Wynn's back in town, and so I think it behaves when Wynn is in town. It's when he's gone that it starts to act up.
Yeah, I think I found the unmute button there finally.
Okay.
Yeah, everything is working good. I did a little maintenance visit to the repeater a couple of weeks ago, and we were having an issue with more of a data issue than an RF issue with our UHF module. But I think I fixed that, and the last few weeks it's been working flawlessly because I've been here in town, so it behaves itself. But when I'm out of the country, it seems to act up. But anyway, all's working well. We're still trying to locate just the right piece of hardware to do the system upgrade, to install ICOM's new software. They haven't made it mandatory yet, but I guess at some point later in the year they may be pushing us harder to upgrade. But it's all working great for right now.
Okay. Good, Wynn. Thank you for all the work you're doing to keep that going for us.
Sure.
And then the status of the remote station. I was playing with that a little bit. I recently moved to a new house and my new antenna is not up yet. So I've been making use of the remote station that installed. The antennas are on the roof at the Bon Air United Methodist Church. We have the station up in one of the utility rooms upstairs in a rack. So that's available to all the members of the club. So you can think of that station as your backup station, or station you might remote station you might pull up if you're traveling or away. So it's working, and you can drop in and use that and have some fun making contacts with it. The next item I have is the RARC net status and activity. We have nets, 6-meter net, 50.135 on Sunday at 7 p.m., 80-meter net at 3.858, lower side band Monday nights at 8 p.m. We have a virtual CW band that might be paused. I believe Rob or Armin can tell me if you paused our virtual CW band net. Armin, can you unmute and tell me if that started back up? We paused it for the holidays.
Yes, and we didn't do it last Tuesday, but the intentions are for next Tuesday at 8:30 to get that back going. And I may send out an email to all the guys who have been on it before to give them a reminder that we'll probably be back in action on Tuesday night.
Great. So this is the we're using the ham radio solutions V-band solution that connect our keys via a USB port, and then we go to that site and we're practicing. A lot of folks are just starting or just brushing up on CW or jump in there, and that's a warm and friendly and encouraging. Get a lot of encouragement. QSOs there virtually. 10-meter net. 28,475. Is it Tom Ebert or is it Tom Flippin is net control for that one on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. I believe that's Tom Flippin. I don't think Tom is in here tonight. Well, BIZ, you can unmute. Do you have the 10? Are you taking the 10? You'll need to unmute, Tom. Tom is telling us something, but he hasn't unmuted yet.
He runs net.
He runs the net. Okay. You got it. He runs it. Thank you, Tom. And then there's the 6-meter net, the 52.525. I think that's another one that Tom Ebert is doing for us on Thursday night. So these guys are always there. You can check in with them and hear some of the other guys that are in the club there as well. Let's see, what else do we have? I checked the other local clubs, the Central Virginia Contest Club, RATS Club, the Dominion DX Group, and the Central Virginia 6-meter single sideband net to see what activities are going on. And the RATS will be going to have the Winter Field Day in January 25th and 26th at the Pocahontas State Park in Chesterfield. Their registration is open, and you don't need to be a member. So if you're interested in joining RATS, that been very, very welcoming, and we've been invited to join them, and you don't have to be a member to attend. So you can go to their site and sign up for that. January 25th and 26th, the Winter Field Day. And the other thing I found from the Central Virginia 6-meter single sideband net is their tailgate. That's an event that many of us like to join. That's set for April, but they don't have an exact date. It still seems to be planned for the Hatcher Memorial Baptist Church, 2300 Dumbarton Road. So we'll keep an eye on their site to see exactly what date they choose for their tailgate. Does anybody else have any information? I know some of you are members both of our club or in the Central Virginia Contest Club. Any information you want to share, you can unmute and give us an update.
Now, Bill N4WLC, I just wanted to add that at Pocahontas State Park, if you come, just tell them that you're coming there for the radio event or whatnot, and there's no fee to get in.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Are there any club publicity updates? I have a request for the boards. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to capture some of the promotional material. For example, I have here, if you have any files of brochures or cards or anything, here I've got a patch that was generated for the club. This was done and we don't know where all the files are. So the board would like to get copies of the files because sometimes for publicity, we'd like to have brochures for the guys that are supporting the VE test. And they would like to hand out one of the brochures about the club, or others are attending a Maker Fest event, and they might want to hand out a card. So we'd like to be able to reproduce them and get them together and kind of keep the files together. And the first step is just put out a call to all the members who might have a file or might have an example to share that with us so that we can capture that and reproduce that and use that going forward. Let's see, is there any old business? Does anybody have any old business for us? Any new business? You can unmute if you have any business. Any announcements for the club? Anybody worked any new countries or worked any special event stations? Any new upgrades?
Hello.
Yeah, Dwayne.
I got a suggestion that just popped in my head. In April, a science fiction convention. Science fiction, fantasy, they also do some real science is going to have a convention at the, Virginia Center Commons Resort Complex.
Right.
We might could get a table there. I don't know if that would be advisable, but hey.
Okay.
It's called RavenCon.
RavenCon. Okay, we'll have to look into that, see what that's all about, and see, if that indeed. Thank you for pointing that out, Dwayne. Any new calls or upgrades to announce? Any show and tell? All right, I want to remind you that please support Armin with our newsletter. If you have any articles or ideas for articles, please get in touch with Armin. He would like to have your input, suggestions, or have your articles. Maybe you have an article that you might be able to prepare and share with him that he might include. And also, if there are any programs that you might be interested in, we'd like to hear about it. We're doing pretty good for the first half of the year and having programs lined up for our meetings. But we do have some openings in May, July, and August, in October. So we have some slots if there's something that you have a particular interest in, or you've come across that somebody could provide us with a presentation. I'd certainly like to know about it. So please let me know. Please send me an email in case for any of those ideas. So that's about it from my business meeting agenda. Does anybody else have any items? Do I have a motion to conclude the business portion of the meeting?
Motion to conclude the business portion of the meeting N4WLC.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
I
Okay, that concludes the business meeting. And Jason is with us tonight, and he's going to give us an explanation of the 220 linked repeaters. And I'm looking forward to that. I know some others are here we've got a nice turnout, 45 people, so that's a pretty good turnout for us. So Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can unmute and take it away.
Alrighty, first, I guess let's see if can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Cool. Anyway, good evening. Jason Natowski, KG4FJC. And first thing I wanted to do is throw a shout out to my dad, who's in the chat in the room also, Constable Heartless. He's a pirate by day, so you know, just take that for what it's worth. What I've got is just a little PowerPoint presentation for everybody for I'm sorry, my camera's up here and my monitors are down here. So I'll do some talking about the system, how it works, the basic stuff, you know, concerning all of it. And then I guess we'll do a Q&A. But I guess if you have a question while I'm in the middle of it, I guess, you know, I've got the chat window open and or just unmute and yell at me or whatever. And forgive me, I was trying to munch down some dinner because I just got home a little while ago and around here, and it's still cold in the shack. So show of hands, I can see most everybody there. Show of hands, who's played on the Richmond 224.42 machine? Sweet, cool. And also thank you to Mr. Wynn Grant there for the invite to the club meeting. I do appreciate it. And hey, we like being a clown here. So let's see if I can share my screen correctly. Did that go up there for everybody to see? Yep. Okay.
Yep, it's up.
Yeah, we got it.
Cool. Well, now I won't know how to get it undone, but we'll figure that out. The KG4 HOT 220 megahertz system. It's a linked 220 megahertz repeater system. We try to keep it primarily 220 megahertz. We do also like to have on occasion some 900 megahertz stuff in, kind of the unused portions of the band or bands. And we try to shun away from 2 meter and 70 centimeter stuff because there's enough of that all over the place. It's the atmosphere on the system is keep it within the rules, but have fun. It's a hobby. There's no prim and proper etiquette, if you will, on our system. It's yeah, I mean, you'll hear the occasional 10-4 and, you know, thank you, good buddy, just as we try to rib each other. It was started shoot, I'm not exactly sure the year that it started, but it's been a while. Tim Miller, KG4 HOT, I know most of y'all probably know who he is. He started with just 224.600 in Charlottesville, and thanks to an Elmer of his, Brian K4LTX. And what Brian introduced him to 220, and Tim put up the first 220 repeater kind of to start the process. And then I came along, and Tim and I are good friends. And pretty much it was like, well, I've got stuff. Can you figure out how to make it work? Like, well, I don't know. I had no clue. So just started piddling with it, let the smoke out of a few things accidentally. And he didn't beat me over the head. So we continued on. So it's kind of just a few guys and a dream of what we could do with it. We started off with cobbled together hardware, and we've still got a lot of cobbled together hardware. The entire system is both RF and internet linked for our repeaters and other people's repeaters as well. Because it's not just his, obviously, because, you know, the club has their 22442, which awesome, by the way, I love using because I work in Chesterfield. And it's manageable as far as controllable by both RF and internet. I primarily use internet because I'm on my phone a lot. So that's kind of the gist of it. We've got quite a few repeaters. Of course, Tim Miller myself, Brewer there in Richmond, Sean down in Alabama. He actually helps admin the system quite often as well. I forgot to put his name on the slide there. My apologies if he's listening. This slide here shows kind of a crude crayon drawing of how the system is connected together and all the other repeaters. You'll see at the top left, we've got 224.500, which is that one's actually owned by Lowell, KK4PH. Then we have 224.600, which is located at Trump Winery. We've got 224.220, which is out Covington area, Warm Springs. Then we've got 224.300, which is Pond Gap. It's not a, unfortunately, we lost our original site that one was on. So it is now a much lower coverage repeater, albeit still is in the system. And then in the center, you'll see in the green box, we have 224.580, which shares the site with our UHF hub, which links all the repeaters on the left together. And that's just a direct connection. And then we also have, of course, 224.42, you guys and several others that connect in by way of our cloud server by way of internet for voice over IP. That's kind of a generic breakdown, if you will, of kind of how everything is tied together. This is pretty much our overall statewide coverage. This does not include N8RAT Rod, who has brought forth, I think, 3 other repeaters that are out kind of Northern Virginia, West Virginia area, which has been great having his machines in as well. So it actually covers to the north considerably better than what this coverage map shows. And you'll see the light green is fairly reliable coverage area. Once you get into the yellowish, not so great, but may or may not work. So it covers a pretty good bit. So you can, I mean, I start off in Buckingham County, and the little, I don't know if you can see, does my mouse pointer show up on the screen? Can somebody let me know? I don't know if it does or not.
Yeah, it's showing up,
Yes,
Jason.
it shows up.
All right, great. You'll notice this area kind of right through here is pretty broken. Be honest with you, I usually kind of turn the radio off on my commute because I live out here and then commute into here. I generally am listening to the broadcast radio because it works, but it's hit or miss depending where you're at. So there is that. But overall, it's pretty reliable coverage to talk from, the eastern part of West Virginia or parts of Northern Virginia down, as far as like Lynchburg, even stretching down towards Danville and those directions. So it's a fairly large coverage system. And how does it all work? There's our glorious leader, Mr. Tim, KG4HOT. We use what's called All-Star, All-Star Link to be technical. It's a voice over IP system. I think a lot of people are kind of familiar with All-Star. If you're not, no worries. I can explain that in a little bit better. As the screen shows, what is All-Star? All-Star is software that is based on Asterisk PBX phone switching software for voice over internet. The hardware that's involved is actually really cheap. It's a $35 Raspberry Pi. We use a Pi 3 at most of our sites, and then an analog to digital converter that does the PTT, the carrier detect, and your audios both ways. We, whoever you want to call it, have kind of opted to just let the radio hardware do the CTCSS decoding. It's a lot easier on my part, and my wee little brain can handle that. The software allows the Pi to control the repeater, so we don't use any hardware controllers, no CATs or ARCOMs or anything like that. We strictly use the Raspberry Pi as our repeater controller. The Pi, like I said, handles the audio in and out by way of the analog to digital converter. And then you'll hear people talk about their all-star nodes. Well, a node is basically, for argument's sake, just a voice over IP extension number, more or less just a phone number. On all of our RF sites, we run 2 nodes per Raspberry Pi. So it's controlling the carrier detect, PTT, and audio in and out on 3 actual radios when you count the repeater being 2 radios and then our link. So it's doing quite a bit of work, and it seems to handle it very well. We have very few failures. What I've got here, this is a repeater that I kind of cobbled together that we took to Berryville with us. I put a little IP camera on it and stuff like that for fun and stuff like that. You'll see the TXRX duplexers in the middle, and in that box on the bottom with the laptop sitting on it is the actual repeater itself. This one here is actually our hub repeater. The radios on the top are 224.58, and the Motorola CDMs underneath that are our UHF link. And then, of course, we've got a network switch, which is literally just sitting on top of the duplexers. The Raspberry Pi in that clear case in the middle. And then the green boxes are the analog to digital converters. No affiliation, but I try to strictly use the Masters Communications RA35 units. They've been very, very bulletproof, holding up to me literally abusing them with 12 volts and unlimited current, and it didn't like it, but it kept on working. So I was like, well, they must be pretty good. Then under that is our power supply for all the radios and the Pi and everything. And then we've got our 220 duplexers mounted down on the bottom. And for what it's worth, this site is up at Bear Den Mountain, right on top of the Blue Ridge. Our UHF link is only 9 watts out of the duplexers getting to the antennas. And I can work that from 288. Not great, but I can actually work our UHF link system from 288. And that's all going through a Comet 333 antenna, which is not by any means a good repeater antenna, but it handles 220 and UHF with no problem. This is the inside of that box from the back up a couple slides from the one that I built that we took to Berryville. This is the guts of all the repeaters. Well, of a lot of the repeaters anyway. Here we have a pair of Tate TM8200 220 radios running headless, meaning there's no display on them at all, no volume knob, no buttons, no nothing. It's just the chassis for a couple of remote mount radios. You can see you got a fan on it, which it's not really needed for the receive radio, but it made a convenient spot to mount the fan. So it blows on the transmit radio, which is in the front. To the far left bottom corner, you'll see the Raspberry Pi in a clear case. Beside that little black box is actually a Amazon special buck converter to drop 12 volts down to 5 volts. Then on the right side in that green case is just a 3D printed case for the RA35 interface. And of course, a fuse block right next to it. And then in the back clear case, that's a fan controller for temperature control for the fan. And then you, of course, back on the left side, you see the white Ethernet cable coming out of it. That's for our internet connection. This is another example of one that I built, also using a pair of the Tate TM8200s. And you'll see the red light on that one. That's just because the radio was powered up. It wasn't actually transmitting, just FYI, because there's no antenna hooked up. This one I actually have here in the shack. This is my my home repeater. It's using the pair of Tates, and it's actually using a Raspberry Pi Zero W2 as the controller. That little $15 Raspberry Pi controls the repeater, does all the IDing, all the internet linking, the remote control, everything out of that little teeny weeny $15 Raspberry Pi Zero. The green box is also the buck converter for the 12 volts to 5 volts. Below that is the same Masters Communications RA35. That one's just in a metal enclosure. Of course, the fuse block towards the rear and the fan control on the top left. So that's my little toy repeater. It seems to work good. For those that aren't familiar, this is our Supermon page. This is how we can control the system remotely by way of internet. This is just a web page. You'll see kind of top middle-ish, you'll see the buttons that say connect, disconnect, monitor, local monitor, et cetera, et cetera. All you have to do is actually see, I'll say my mouse works. Where is it? Like, let's say I wanted to disconnect one of Rod's machines here. I would click on this. It would put the node number up in this little box right here. And then I would click disconnect. It'll ask me another box, say, are you sure? Yeah, that's why I clicked on it. And it will disconnect it. Or I can take and type a node number in this box and click connect, and it'll connect up. Another way of doing it is by way of DTMF commands. You can simulate DTMF through the web interface, or you can do DTMF directly on the repeater you're on, which is kind of nice, multiple ways. We can do some basic changes to how it's functioning through here. And then, of course, we can keep up with all of the things related to how the computer is running and system status. What I don't show on here, unfortunately, is when 47046, which is our cloud node, it's not a physical hardware node. When that is transmitting, this line will change to red to show that it's transmitting. Or if anybody else they're transmitting and we're hearing them, these lines will change color to blue in real time to let us know that, hey, this one's transmitting and we're transmitting, or we're receiving and they're transmitting, so on and so forth. Which again does pretty good. And yeah, I don't know why honestly, I don't know where this is for Charlottesville, so it's pulling our weather. It was 28 degrees apparently when I took this screenshot. But this is our basic everyday how we control it. And up here, I might actually pull it up here in a minute, but you can click on display groups. And from this one page, I can control all of the repeaters in our system that are internet linked anyway. So like if I needed to get into 224.42 in Richmond, say it was doing something weird, I can actually come up here and change my layout to display only the 224.42 machine and make changes directly to that one without affecting the rest in the system, which is pretty neat. Here is our normal system connections. It's kind of, you can't really read the numbers here. The blue one is our main cloud node that everybody's connected to, Richmond and all of our other, internet connected sites. This pink one is actually a Echolink connection, because All-Star will let you do Echolink and All-Star simultaneously. So anybody on Echolink can connect in, or vice versa. We can connect out to Echolink. And these are other nodes that are connected in. I can't even read them on my computer, honestly. It's this picture squished. This is more or less a typical how the system would normally be connected just throughout the day. At 1 o'clock Eastern, we connect to Oklahoma, which is runs the boredom breaker net. That started with a group of 220 machines in Oklahoma and has blossomed into a worldwide net. We only stay connected for 1 hour from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock because while we do have a couple commercial repeaters, most of our stuff is mobiles cobbled together. It gets a little warm after it's been under an hour of transmit time, so we kind of limit it. But that's a very good net to check into. It's kind of fun. But on there are 2 meter, 70 centimeter, D star, whatever people connect in. It's not my net, so they do what they want, and it's kind of fun. During net time, it can start looking like this. Again, this is ours right here. And then we connect to Oklahoma right here. And these are all the ones that are connected directly to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's directly connected to this one, which all these connections are connected in, all these connections. It grows pretty massive. And that's part of the reason why we want to limit it to an hour. It's just a lot of stuff going on. So with that, that's pretty much what I've got for this. Let me see if I can figure out how to get rid of my screen share. And I think we're back here. So fire away one at a time, and I'll try to do what I can to answer questions or what have you.
Hey, Jason, it's Jim W. for PKR.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I was taking a drink of my. Bit.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for the presentation. I have one question. What's the lag time like when in normal use, and especially in that 1 hour when it's spread across so many nodes? What's the lag time like? And what do you recommend for keying up when in use?
Great question. The typical lag, now, if we're not counting the CTCSS lag, for those that don't know, when you're running most repeaters have, tone access. So when you key your radio, it sends out a subaudible tone. The repeater hears that tone and then opens up and then it starts retransmitting the signal. That tone access compounds the further out you go to the more machines. If you don't take into account the CTCSS lag, there is typically about 3/4 of a second to 1 second, depending on the internet connection. It can be a little bit more at times, but usually it's about a second. When you count in your CTCSS lag, sometimes it can be as much as 1.5 seconds. It's typically not quite that bad, but it can be. So as far as the recommendations, we've kind of fallen with what the Oklahoma group does is we typically say, key your mic, count to 2, speak your piece, hold your mic keyed for another 1 to 2 seconds, and then unkey. So in my case, you can see my hands here, it would be KG4FJC and let off. And that will pretty much ensure that all your traffic should get across. Does that answer what you had?
Yes, thank you very much.
Bill N4WLC with a question.
Absolutely, sir. Fire away.
When you're checking into a net, a lot of times locally here we do this is and then release and then come back if we don't hear any activity. How do they handle that on that?
Another great question, and y'all are probably going to dig this. There are people that still do that, which is fine, but when you're talking about especially like the Boredom Breaker net with several hundred machines linked together, letting off and then rekeying, while it doesn't necessarily confuse the controllers or anything, it does kind of mix up your audios. Now, the nice thing with All-Star is while our repeaters are not full duplex, All-Star is full duplex. So if somebody keys on another repeater that's connected and you key up at the same time and y'all both start talking, everybody else will hear both conversations. They will hear both audios. So it helps eliminate a lot of the Now, it doesn't eliminate all of it, but it helps eliminate a good chunk of the, oh, I didn't hear you because you must not have got through. You will typically, if the system's set up correctly, both audios will make it all the way through. Now, if both people key up on the same repeater at the same time, you're still stuck with how it behaves locally.
Will KR4CE with the question?
Yes, sir. KR4C. There you go.
Yeah. So, kind of a rhetorical question, but what is your typical response when people would argue that this is not radio? Because I get so frustrated when people try and argue that digital stuff is not radio. You muted yourself.
Whoops. There we go.
See?
Nice thing with our system and most all-star systems is that it's still your analog audio, the analog audio sound. It's not true analog across the internet, obviously, but it still has the analog sound to it, and it's virtually indistinguishable between regular analog audio, in my opinion. Now, as far as to answer your question about that, to each their own, man. I don't really care for a lot of digital stuff myself, and sad to say, I mean, I work with digital stuff all day long. I still kind of prefer the analog thing, but to each their own. I mean, if you want to play, come play. If you don't, there's plenty of other stuff. So there you go.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Quick comment, if I could.
Yes, sir.
Hey, good evening, guys. Tim, KG4HOT. Just to bounce off of that question and to let you know that the system here that has the hub located at Bear Den, there are technically 4 repeaters that are all linked by way of RF. So provided that each site has the receive link on and the hub is transmitting, that system is all completely RF. The only connection would be the ones that are coming in by way of the All-Star, which is over the internet. So yeah, I mean, you don't have internet, you don't have that connection. But so far as what we have out here in this area, we have all of those repeaters are linked, and we have quite the coverage area with that alone. Now, we've often thought and contemplated that possibly a good UHF Yagi on the tower in Richmond might actually make it to the hub. And there would be a possibility that even the Richmond repeater would be direct RF linked into the system that way. But yes, I view the same way. When the internet goes down, and if you're looking at a quote communication of emergency sort, then you're going to be left with what you got. But in the interim of time, it's a lot of fun, and it does allow other people who have interest in the band of 220 or 900 to participate. It also puts some activity into their areas as well. We have a number of individual connections that are using 220 simplex. Randy, KO4BMA, if you're down around Pocosin and get around his area, you can get into the entire network off of his antenna. We have another gentleman, Gene, up in Pennsylvania, who his simplex node covers probably 20-25 mile out. And numerous others, Sean down in Alabama, Mike down in Florida. So, numerous ways. And again, that's playtime because it's making use of the internet. So when it comes to emergency services, we're talking a different cat there. And, obviously we do things different. But this is to promote, this initially started out as because 220 was mainly a pretty unused band. I came into the hobby in 2000. Brian K4LTX pushed me off into 220. I just got fueled by it, and in 2001, do what?
I said it's been downhill since then.
Oh, yeah. 2001, the first 220 repeater went on the air up on flat top, consisting of a pair of Alinco DR235 mobile radios, of which the transmitter, other than about 6 months of rest time, has been in play for that duration, running at full power. One summer, it ran all summer long with no cooling fan on, unbeknownst to us until we visited the site. But sitting on top of the mountain in an absolutely, the shack up there is nothing more than a large outhouse, and no heating, no cooling, and was quite floored. So I think Alinco would probably be proud to display that in a museum somewhere for the abuse taken on a single amateur radio. But that's a quick synopsis. All right, I'm gonna shut up and back out. Thanks for joining, guys.
All right, Tim. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you stopping by. Who else got questions that we can hopefully answer?
Jason, this is Win in Richmond. Maybe you or Tim could tell folks who aren't familiar with the 220 band what the equipment options are for somebody who wants to get on 220. I know the big three, ICOM, Kenwood, and Yaesu probably make some radios, but there are a lot of others that people don't always think about if they're looking to get a piece of hardware to play with 220.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect. Tim, why don't you take this one?
Okay. So we were fortunate to be blessed to help a local power company group out that was abandoning their commercial gear through a friendship relationship with a shop over in Harrisonburg. Shen Valley Electric was using 220 for their land mobile communications for a while. They switched and went to a different manufacturer and a different band. So they have blessed us with the opportunity to try and push them into the hands of the ham community. It's a commercial radio, a lot like Motorola. Obviously, because it's commercial, Jason can tell you about the programming. I don't do any of that, but they are great 25-watt mobile radios. Good solid. They can run high and low power. Low power is 5 watts, high is 25. The other, probably from the ham side, I would have to say probably the TYT 9000 is a single band 50-watt mobile radio. Anytone I think has Anytone has a tri-band 2-meter 220 440. They also have another tri-band that does only 5 watts out on 220, but it also does DMR as well. So there's a number of ways to get on. Yeah, it's unfortunate that Kenwood didn't continue with their rig, because back in the day, I'm sure some of you remember the Kenwood tri-band radios that you could get particular modules if you wanted. 742, I think, being the latest one that they had produced, and a great radio, and they just quit that. And we often lament that they're not still making it. But I would probably say, for the money and getting into it, probably the TYT 9000, and certainly we've got some of the Tates left. The difficulty with the Tates is that their weak point seems to be the display. And Jason, since I've got you on the line here, in the upcoming weekends, I would like to sit down. We were talking about doing like a 10-channel programming for some of the mobile radios that the display is starting to get the vertical lines in where you can't quite see all of the characters and everything. And I think that would be very doable, because, I mean, granted, we don't have a whole lot of frequencies available. So for someone who traveled in a particular area, you could easily outfit one of those mobile radios with 10 channels. And you could just use a little cheat sheet, just like you do with some of the other commercial radios, and 10 channels available, and there you go. It's good, solid radio. Sounds great. They're waterproof. So So it's a good solid radio, but just limited to the display. It seems to be their weak point. Aside from that, the TYT 9000 single band would probably be the radio that I would recommend back to the group.
Bill
Yeah.
N4WLC with a comment.
Hold on just a second, Bill. Let me add a little bit to what Tim was saying there. Of course, there are the Baofeng handhelds, which if you're in Richmond would work okay. They're not my first choice. The Anytone, I think it's the Anytone 350. It's also portable. Quite a few guys have those, and they seem to work pretty good actually. For options for radios, and I don't know if this is going to show up. This is a filthy radio. Oh, that's not going to show up. That's yeah, that's one of the remote Tates and the brick for it right here, or the chassis. Well, my background just does not want to cooperate. But anyway, so yeah, there are options if you're just wanting to play. Actually, there's also I believe Anytone makes an analog only tri-band, the 5888. So that's not a bad choice either. Anyway, enough of that. Unless anybody else has any more questions about that. Bill, go ahead, sir. Sorry.
No problem. I was just going to mention, and you just brought it up about Baofeng. I've got a BTEC HT tri-band, and from inside my house, I've been able to get in. I don't play with the 220 that often, but I was impressed. One time I just happened to turn it on for the heck of it. Well, more than once. And there was a little girl out Midwest that was running the net, and she did such a wonderful job. I don't remember her call sign. You may know who that is. And more recently, I turned mine on, and a net was going on. There was a guy in England running it, a young fellow, and he was probably, I don't know, in his teens, and he did quite a good job. So it's a very interesting concept as far as all the linked repeaters and stuff. So it is impressive, and I thank you guys for all your efforts. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no worries, man. That's the reason right there why we do it, so people use the thing. It is a lot of work doing it and maintaining it, but if people didn't use it, then I'd have thrown my hat in a while ago, and I'm sure Tim would have also. Yeah, the young girl, I'm not sure. The gentleman from England, that would be Declan. I think he runs it often on Sundays, I believe. He runs the net. But yeah, good times. It's a lot of fun. Who else? Anybody got any more questions?
Michael KN4VA.
Michael, yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that Tim brought up the TYT 9000, and one of the cool things about the TYT 9000, because I have an Alinco 235 Mark III, and it has the 9 pin port on it. But if you wanted to build a all-star node that was going to cover an area, you could use the 9000, get the cables that you can do internally to get the 9 pin port put on, and basically it kind of acts and feels like an Alinco then, and then the RA. A number of devices then would connect to that, so you could set up an all-star node for higher power. But it's a lot of fun to do for sure.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. To honk my own hooter here a little bit, if you go to YouTube and search for my call sign KG4FJC, I did a series of videos for building an all-star node out of a TYT 9000 and list the part numbers and everything. It's not the best video quality or audio quality in the world, but several people have said that they liked it, and they got a lot of information out of it. So, but yes, you can absolutely do that with quite a few radios. The TYTs that I convert over to do that use the same pinout as the Alincos, because we started off with mostly Alincos, the DR235s. And we figured, all right, well, if we're going to use a cheap Chinese radio, we're not expecting it to last 5 minutes in repeater service. So if it doesn't, we'll swap an Alinco back in and just unplug it, plug a new one in, and keep riding. And they actually work pretty good. So I can't really complain too much about the TYTs for their cost. Anything else or anyone else?
I would just add into what Bill was saying. I have a TYT TH350, which is a tri-band handheld. I think that's probably what you were referencing. I've never had any issue using that radio here in the Richmond area. The Baofeng, what is it? A 5x3, I think, is a tri-band. That thing has worked excellent. The Kenwood TH75, the new one, is tri-band. It works. Um, to your point and to what Jason and Tim both say, and if you're local to the Richmond area, you can get out and get on the 220. It works well here. And I'm a little further out than Bill is in Chesterfield County, so I hit the 220 repeater just fine. And most of the power on some of these radios is, only a couple of watts, where the rest of the radio might be 5 watts. But I still haven't had any issues. It's worked really well.
Yeah.
I said
Great.
enough.
That's all right. I will say that Brewer and I have been in chat. The Richmond 22442 machine, that is actually a Tate commercial repeater in there that is still controlled by All Star. So it's got a little Raspberry Pi sitting on top of it. That one, while it's improved coverage on receive from the TYTs that were in it, and the TYTs are, I think Brewer has those for backups in case the Tate dies, which it's a 100-watt, 100% duty cycle radio. I don't think it'll die. The receive is not perfect. I will be the first to say that. But it is pretty good. And Brewer and I are working on ways to get the receive up to the standards that I think it should be. I think we're dealing with noise, but I haven't been able to isolate whether it's internal noise or external noise. So there you go. Anybody else got anything?
Yes. This is Dennis, K4DAF.
Yes, sir.
What do you recommend that we use for antennas?
There's actually quite a few antennas. If you're talking, I'm assuming you're going for mobile, or are you going for at the house, or what?
At the house, and I live out in Louisa.
At the house, the first one that comes to mind that I think is very good is the Comet CX333. It's a tri-band Omni, base station antenna, and they seem to work pretty good for all the bands. Now, do they do any one band extremely great? Probably not, but they do work pretty good for all the bands. So it kind of, one antenna will get you coverage on a lot. Now, if you wanted a dedicated antenna, you got the Hustlers, which are a little bit high dollar. I think drawing a blank now. There's a couple others that do 220. And believe it or not, what we found is the Diamond X510, while not a 220 rated antenna, will work on 220 with a reasonable SWR. Now, they don't receive the best, they don't transmit the best, but they will work at 10, 15 watts with a reasonable SWR. So if you got that up and you just wanted to play, I would say put an SWR meter on it before you really try it, but they seem to work. On the mobile side, you can get quite a few tri-band antennas from various manufacturers. On the portable side, there's a lot of Chinese antennas that seem to work okay. The little diamond I primarily use a Kenwood F6A as my go-to radio, and I've got a diamond, I forget the number on it, but that antenna works incredibly great for all bands. Back to the group there for any more.
KN4VA comment.
Yes, sir, Steve. think you might still be muted there. Okay, no worries. Yeah, it wasn't showing that it was muted, but I lost all audio. Maybe it was just me.
Yeah, he's muted. Now,
Yeah, we can't hear.
Sorry, Steve. Anybody else?
KN4VA comment.
KN4VA, yes, sir.
Yeah, I was on antennas. KB, was it KB9 VBR? That makes the J poles. He makes a 2-meter dedicated J pole, a 1.25 meter dedicated J pole, and N9 TAX that does the roll up J poles. He does also a roll up for 220 as well. Both of those work very excellently.
Okay, I'm not sure if that might be the Ed Fong antenna.
No, it's not Ed Fong. It's N9 TAX.
Okay, just making sure because the Ed Fong.
There is an Ed Fong, but
don't do the Ed Fong. Don't.
Yeah.
Don't do the Ed Fong.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed with those.
All right. Well, if I'll throw one more call out real quick, and then I guess it's kind of getting late. One more call for any more questions, and then we'll throw it back to well, not to net control, but to chat control.
Jason, just a brief comment.
I have to take him. He's my dad, so he'll kick my butt if I don't. Yeah. What's up?
I just wanted to say that it was actually the 220 band and Jason and Tim that got me back into the hobby. I had been a ham when Jason was born, but I had to carry a radio and had one installed in my car for the police department for 30 some years, and so I got radioed out and let the original license expire. But when I retired, I got curious with Jason and some of the stuff he was doing, and when I heard his sales pitch on 220, it kind of sold me. So it's a remarkable band that we should use, because if we don't use it like anything else, we could end up losing it. And we're fortunate here in this country because there are a lot of countries that cannot use the 220. So I do encourage people to look into it if they're not into it already. I pretty much use 220 exclusively, even though every now and then I'll break down and go 2 meters, but it's usually only when I have to. But Jason and Tim have done an excellent job, and they have worked very, very hard to build up the hobby and to ensure that as many people as possible can get into it. So I am kind of proud of him and Tim both. So I'll let you get back to, you don't need an old pirate telling you what to do here. So, all right, you did good, Jason.
Thanks for joining us, and I love your car in the background.
All right, Dad, I appreciate it. Yeah, this is his old Dodge Brothers hot rod. Well, not really hot rod, it's original. Pretty sweet ride. Yeah, well, now that he's embarrassed me and made my train of thought jump the tracks. Anyway, I do appreciate y'all letting me take the opportunity to come in here and give you my spiel and my pitch, and we'll turn it back over to whoever's in charge of chat control, and we'll kick back for the rest of it. KG4FJC.
Thanks for the presentation, Jason.
thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Good
And
job,
thank you,
brother,
Jason. It's
man.
been a great program.
Quick, if I could,
Thanks.
one last little thing. See if I've got it here real quick. One last little thing. Tim, K3XI. I wanted to let him have a chance to speak because he uses Rod's N8RATs connections up kind of northernish Virginia area and get his take on it for everybody if I could.
Oh yeah, it's been absolutely excellent. Probably I've been around for a while, and this is probably from what I hear and how well this system works. It's probably the best 220 system on the East Coast, actually, and it works extremely well. And as far as what I'm really impressed with, that you mentioned earlier, the lag time. For up here, what I hear coming through Rod's system from down there really isn't anything there to speak much of. You wouldn't even know if the repeaters were linked. So it's actually that good. So they really did a heck of a job on that. That's a tough job to do, to make it the way it sounds. It's really excellent. And that's why I'm on there. And it's a different atmosphere as well.
All right, Tim, I appreciate it, sir.
Sure,
And,
no
back
problem.
over. All right, KG4 FJC. Catch y'all later.
Okay, Jason, thank you very much. For the program tonight, I think this is right up there with one of my favorites, and I think pretty interesting. I'll have to look into that. I hadn't been on 220, but I'm interested to dig into that a little bit. So if anybody else have anything else to add for the program tonight? Well, I guess this concludes our January meeting. So I want to thank everybody for joining us and especially Jason for putting on such a fine program. You all have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks for letting me be here.
Daryl, you gonna leave it